Greetings, Andy here again with another video, and this is my sort of usual monthly roundup of new releases I've bought during the previous month. And we're already in the middle of August. Tempest has been fugiting again. I got 7 new releases, 2 of which are actually reissues, and quite important reissues to me, so I'm going to cover those as well, but they've not just recently been reissued, and 5 brand new albums, new music albums from quite around the world. We've got something from obviously the US and the UK, we've got some Australia, and we've got some Central America to cover. So now you might be forgiven for thinking what the was that intro all about, and I'm sure lots of people will have recognised that it was the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band with Viv Stansel doing his finest Elvis impression, and of course they were that was a sort of snippet of their song called Death Cab for Cutie, and Death Cab for Cutie, of course, is a band. This is my favourite reissue, and possibly, had this not been a reissue, had this been brand new, this would have been my album of the month. It's a cracker. Now, why on earth? Death Cab from Cutie hail from Washington, right in the northern part of Washington, so close to the Canadian border that it's sort of nearer to Vancouver than anywhere else. And they're quite a serious indie rock band, not known for their levity. So why on earth they called themselves after a song by possibly the most eccentric band, not only in Britain, but in the world, possibly. I don't think any band gets much more eccentric than the Bonzos. Anyway, Ben Gibbard called his band after that song. Don't know why, and this is a crowd. This is regarded as being their finest album. It came out originally in 2000, and let me look at my notes, 2003, and I do have it on CD, and I have 2 or 3 subsequent ones to this. So that sort of middle order. I think they produced. This was their 4th album, and they've produced quite a lot in those sort of last 20-25 years. As I say, they're indie rock, classic guitar-based indie rock. Sometimes gets a little bit heavy, but mostly not. Great lyrics, quite introspective. Ben Gibbard's got a great voice. Transatlanticism apparently refers to the sort of a distance between lovers of, I presume one was in Europe and one was on the west coast of the US. Rather good this is. There we go. That's Death Cab for Cutie and Transatlanticism. It's a double LP. I think it's got 11 tracks, and it's an absolute crystal clear, transparent vinyl, and it's a really good pressing. So nice wide grooves, not too many. It's quite spread. It probably would have been, typical CD from that era would squeeze onto 3 sides, but they've stretched it over 4, which is good.
So this is the new year. I have no resolution. It's surface on panic. For problems with easy solution.
A second reissue, and another one I had originally, but I only had it on as an MP3, so I've got this on my server, and it's a sort of supergroup, and it's Monsters of Folk, and the album Monsters of Folk, which came out originally in 2009. Now, Monsters of Folk are 4 people: Jim James from My Morning Jacket, and not sure which way around these are, but that's Conor Oberst from Bright Eyes, and I think that's Mike Moggis. I'm not sure which is which. Also Bright Eyes, and M Ward of M Ward, they call themselves folk. So I mean, these are bands I really like. So Bright Eyes, absolutely fabulous. I've got a lot of their stuff. Likewise, My Morning Jacket have one M Ward album. Again, it's an MP3 on my server. And this album was produced as a double, and the first three sides cover the original sort of CD that was issued for this, and then the fourth side has 5 additional tracks which were recorded later in 2012 as a session when they were preparing to produce a second album, but that never actually saw the light of day. It never happened. So they've only got those 5 songs apparently, and they're on the fourth side of this. It's not really folk as I would think of it. It's very good Americana, and you know, it's sort of folky. It's acoustic in parts, but so like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, you know, a previous super group of folky people from other bands. Each of the songs on here is sort of sung by one of them, and the song is quite distinctive to that person who is leading it. So in some ways it has the feel of a compilation, but not in a distracting way. You know, the album still feels as a whole. The songs work together as an album, but they're just distinctly of the particular input to them. Conor Oberst in particular has a very distinctive voice, and Bright Eyes, I love Bright Eyes. They've got a new album coming out, not sure when, later. It's not long, September, October time, and I have pre-ordered that one. And it's another one which is, again, as I say, it's a double, and again it's very resplendent in another crystal clear transparent, and this one has in there, it's one of these ones which has a huge poster. There we are, has a huge poster with the lyrics on, so it's a bit difficult to get out and look at, but there you go.
Love we made at gunpoint wasn't love at all. The dancing in the valley, the moon's the mirror ball. Blew open my mind, now it's an empty room. Swinging in a hammock, dogs are walking across the roof.
And so now, first of my completely new music releases, and we're going to Melbourne in Australia, and the Dirty Three and their album Love Changes Everything. Now, Dirty Three have been around since the very early 90s. It's instrumental, improvisational rock, I think describes it best. I have seen them described as post-rock, and I sort of get that. It does verge a little bit on post-rock, but I've also, the one I like most, I saw them described as alt everything, because, you know, there's a bit of everything in here. You know, there's some quite heavy, scuzzy rock. There's also sort of quite gentle, introspective parts. As I say, it's purely instrumental. They're a 3-piece made up of Warren Ellis, who plays violin and piano, and of course Warren Ellis is Nick Cave's oppo, so mostly he plays with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, lead Bad Seeds, but you know, these have been going just as long as the Bad Seeds, so then with him is Jim White on drums and Mick Turner on guitar. It's not a conventional rock song album, you know, even sort of, you could say it's a little bit classical, but only in structure, not in sound. You know, it's definitely rock based, though more on the post-rock side, I think. You know, with that guitar and you know, quite fuzzy guitar and quite fuzzy violin. So it's a single piece. It's a suite of 6 movements. So each one is called Love Changes Everything, and part 1, 2, 3, up to 6. There's 3 on each side. What's to say? It's quite different. I really like it. I find it very rewarding. It's one of those listen albums. You know, it's not something where you just stream a track, because that wouldn't make sense. It is very much a whole album. And this one's just on black vinyl. Now, another cracking album is the 3rd release by Cigarettes After Sex, and this is called, doesn't show on there, there's the first track, it's X's, X apostrophe little s. Cigarettes After Sex, if you don't know them, are it's sort of dream pop shoegaze, and they hail from El Paso in Texas, and really they are a vehicle for one Greg Gonzalez. So, you know, they usually play as a 3-piece, but the other 2 members have changed a lot over these. So essentially, it's a Greg. It's a Greg Gonzalez band, and X is quite interesting. I presume from the lyrics, it's fairly clear that refers to kisses. And it's quite interesting they've done it as an X's, because I do know that Slow Dive, sort of similar-ish, have one of their main songs is called Kisses, actually spelt as the word. So whether there was any thought in differentiating that, or whether that's just pure coincidence, probably coincidence. So, you know, it's a classic. There's 5 tracks on each side, so a classic 10-track single LP. Lovely, beautiful songs, and Gonzalez's voice is really interesting. He has a sort of dreamy tone, and it's quite high. So it's very, when you listen to it, it's very easy to think it's a woman singing, but not in a sort of androgynous sort of way. Just the tone, and it's dream pop, it's shoegaze. It's really good if you like that sort of stuff. And amazingly, it's yet another really clear, transparent vinyl. There's been quite a lot of that in this.
The door, sleeping on your fingertips, dreaming with a filthy hurt, deep within a threesome kiss, sweet out the words slip, honest with the love you give, careless with the way you talk, say you want it just like that.
More recently, there have been a lot of this year female singer-songwriters producing some really good albums, and there's no difference this month. And this is an album by Cassandra Jenkins. So she's a singer-songwriter hailing from New York, and this album is called My Light, My Destroyer. Let me pick up Pitchfork. So they did quite a nice review of this, but their sort of headline of it actually sums this up quite nicely. And they said in their summary, the New York singer's smouldering, sophisticated songs get a little bit more cosmic while retaining their characteristics, wit and charm. And that really sums it up, because they are charming songs. There's lots of wit in there. It is quite smouldering in parts. You know, it really is sort of beautiful songs, beautifully sung and played. Sometimes just with acoustic guitar and piano, but sometimes with a full band. You know, and it never gets heavy. But and there's some lovely autobiographical songs on here. So there's one I'll just pull out a couple of them, and I'm not going to use these in the sample because they're not necessarily typical of the whole. So there's a song called Aurora, Illinois, and this is about a time when she was on the road and got taken ill. I think it might have been sort of COVID time, and was holed up in a hotel in Aurora, Illinois, while the band carried on to the next place. And she sings in here about being stuck in this hotel room and imagining planes crisscrossing the sky. And she also imagines, apparently she's singing about Shatner, William Shatner, because there's actually a song called Shatner's Theme as well. So he appears a few times. It's part of the sort of space thing. But she sings about the oldest man in space. And going into orbit and crying and weeping when he re-enters, and the reference, so orbiting in a Texas millionaire's rocket. Now apparently that's a reference to Jeff Bezos. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't read it. And all of that sort of weird stuff is juxtaposed by sort of mundane worries and things like that. My favourite track on the album is one called, if you can see that, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, great film, wasn't it? But Beetlejuice, of course, is a star in the constellation Orion. I did actually know that, but it's referenced on here. And that's a lovely song. It basically reprises a conversation she had as a child with her mother. So her mother was a science teacher. And they're stargazing and talking about, and the mother's saying, you know, look at that star there, and they're both excited. I mean, they are. The narration is actually on here. I don't know. It is her and her mother, but I don't know whether it's they recorded that originally or they've gone back and reprised it. Probably the latter, I suspect. And all of that is going on against a really sort of laid back. Piano and sax, and sometimes there's a little bit of laid-back trumpet or trombone in there as well. It's a lovely song. It's not necessarily similar to the others, but I really like to listen to it. It's a lovely song. This was another. Let me put it down there. This was another. Rough Trade Album of the Month, really good one, and as they usually do, it came with a CD with some bonus tracks on there, and it is very resplendent in what they call cotton candy pink. So for us Brits, we'd call it candy floss, but same difference. We know what it means. Now,
disappeared into the mountains, knocked on every door until one opened, and I felt my arms rise light as feathers.
Know what it means. Now, this was a really unusual one. My next one is an album by a band called Nightjar. And it's Mala Leche being bad milk or off milk in Spanish. Now, Nightjar is a project, a solo project by Jimmy Goodwin, who's the singer in Doves. Now, I'm a bit of a completist of Doves, so, you know, I heard he got a solo project LP out. He's had one before. Which wasn't exactly like Doves, but was in a sort of similar genre. This is completely different. I mean, I didn't listen to it first, I just went and bought it because it was Jimmy Goodwin. And imagine my surprise on first listening to discover that this is hip hop, rap. Yeah, the whole album. You know, it's not just a bit of it. It's you know, covers the whole thing. He doesn't sing on it, I don't think, anyway. It's got lots of guest artists, so it's featuring Jason Williamson, who's from Sleaford Mods. Don't like Sleaford Mods much. That's really the worst track. Pan Amsterdam, I don't know any of the others. And I quite like some of those tracks. Homeboy Sandman, Guilty Simpson, Sonny Jim, Quell Chris, Proven, Vast Air and Burgundy Blood. Don't know who they are. I quite like it. There's a lot of tracks on here. 16 tracks altogether. Most of them are sort of like 2 to 3 minutes long, and then sort of sometimes interspersed by little instrumental ditties, you know, of 1 to 2 minutes. There's one long track. The last track, 8 minutes, goes through several different styles. It sort of evolves as it goes along, and sort of ends up transitioning into a sort of a very nice, almost lounge jazz, and the whole album is quite jazz-based musically. Musically, it's really good. I don't mind the rapping as well. The only thing I don't like, other than Williamson's, because I just don't like his voice, there's too much swearing on it. I mean, I don't mind, it doesn't bother me, but it sort of becomes unnecessary when there's too much effing mother effing and all, you know, just too much of it. It's not my usual fare. It's probably, had I realised it was rap, I probably wouldn't have bought it. But in some ways, I'm glad I have. I quite like it, other than that Williamson track. You know, it's an album I'll keep and every now and then pull out because it's just so different from my usual fare. And it is got a really interesting, if you can see that, where are we? Let me pull it out of here a bit more. It's colour, it's all plotchy, and it is actually called Bad Milk, so like the cover. And finally,
overcast outside, no rain. Walk up the high rise, no train. Back down the steps, stay sane. Smoke blown in my face, Mary Jane. Don't love you as much as Rick James, so blow it in my face again. Play games. Your tiger style and my crane. If it ain't about the dollar, I'm a holler man. Ask Zachariah Sitchin. You can't rob me of my ambition. Like good Samaritans to good Samaritans, fear put sheep.
And finally, we come to my last album, which is by Mabe, now let me put it up the right way, Mabe Fratti, and it is called, Sentir Que No Sabes, which means unheard of hope. It's a fascinating album. She is Guatemala born and Mexico City based, described as experimental, which I think is sort of fair. It's a really, really good album. Now, in my previous but one video, which didn't have a massive number of views, I sort of did my virtual band world tour of amongst other places, Central and South America, and I talked about this on there. That was right at the very end of July. So I'm not going to repeat that. If you didn't watch that, this is what I said about it when I do the next one. But anyway, this is a lady called Mabe Fratti, who was born in Guatemala, which we commonly think of as Guatemala City, but she's actually based in Mexico City these days. She's a cellist, and another. Let's get in my notes here. Another one who is generally labelled as experimental, but on this album, the songs are quite sort of conventionally structured, though sometimes the music gets a little bit distorted in a good way, or a bit discordant, shall we say. She sometimes plucks she sometimes strums as well as bowing the cello, and some of the drumming is great. It's got that sort of slightly Central American feel to it. Her singing, I know I haven't got a clue. Supposedly the lyrics are very good. But they're all in Spanish, and I don't understand them, but she's got a really lovely musical voice. So, you know, in some ways I don't miss not knowing what she's singing about, because it just contributes to the actual music. And this is another one that I read a high review. It was 8.4 in Pitchfork, and I sort of read about it in there when it was released at the end of June. I thought, that sounds really interesting. So bought it, and it's got an O because it's all in obviously Spanish, The album, I didn't mention what it's called. It's called Sentir que no sabes, or Sabes, which apparently, according to the Obi strip, means unheard of hope. So there's a little bit of a comment on here. She said, this is her description of this, I started to think about the verb superimpose. Well, doesn't one? And the implication this verb has in moments of intense work in dialogue with another and how ideas overlap. I also think about that moment when you feel that you don't know anything and you are soft like jello and any thought can go through you and ideas change and grow and there's a soft spot there where there's a question mark. Well, yeah, it's a great album, and it's very resplendent in what they call terracotta, which is sort of brown, and it's got 13 tracks on just the single LP. So there we go, that was July, somewhat belatedly in the middle of August, and thanks for watching. Cheers.